What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me on D's Analysis. We're going to be looking at MSTR, going over some indicators, and looking at some different charts as well. So here on MSTR, still in the same area, creating a bull flag, trending sideways in the meantime, still holding underneath our golden zone that's been giving us plenty of trouble. As you can see here, that's just been giving us a lot of trouble. We touched it again today and got rejected once again. I do think the more we touch it, the more likely we are to break it. And after we break that, or once we get inside of it, I would say, we have to break this downward sloping trend line. And once we can do that, we have to get above this golden zone and eventually break 450. I do think when it happens, it's going to happen quicker than people are anticipating. We ended up getting Bitcoin to fall off throughout the day. So MSTR kind of, I don't know if it was front running the move because it's still, within the same day. MSTR was up to, about 390 once the day began, close to it, 388, 389, something like that. And then we pushed back down. And then Bitcoin started to run up, and then that started to fall off. I wonder if that was part of the reason. I still think they're highly correlated, and once Bitcoin does get a durable break above its, maybe 112 mark, the previous high, then maybe that's when we get our aggressive move on MSTR. Maybe once everybody capitulates and says that MSTR is never going up again, maybe that's when we start to get our move. Of course, we'll find out with time. Nothing's guaranteed, of course. Definitely a frustrating day. When you look at the MSTR divided by like the IBIT or divided by Bitcoin, you can see that it underperformed. I know we've been experiencing something like that lately, but at the end of the day, it's a leverage play, and leverage plays typically don't do well when you're going sideways. When we're trending upward consistently, leverage is amazing. But when you're trending sideways or down, you'll have a little bit of erosion in that time period. So this is kind of expected on leverage plays. If you know anything about leveraged ETFs, it happens all the time. Sideways chop and down is never good for a long leverage play. When we look here on the weekly, SMAs, we're still holding above our 20. It looks like it's slowly creeping up. I don't think we'll make contact with it, but you never know. If Bitcoin gets a drop, then that move that we spoke about previously could actually come into play, which was this golden zone here, pulling back to this 0.5 to 618, and essentially saying that the same thing would happen here. That's the way that I would see it happening if we were to touch the 20 SMA, which it lines up right now perfectly. So if we were to get a pullback to the 20 SMA, it would line up with this great upward sloping trend line and this golden zone, the 0.5 to 618. And from there, if we lose that, then that's going to be a really bad sign, but I don't know if we're going to make it down there. Maybe we'll slowly trend upward and eventually break out. We do have to break this downward sloping trend line and golden zone, like I said. To the daily, we have our 20 and 50 underneath us. We got our bounce off the 50, and we opened above the 20, and now we close back underneath it. So let's see where this week takes us. It's just been nonstop sideways all the way through. All the way through the end of May until now. So it's almost pushing a month of going sideways. So I definitely understand why people are exhausted and just over it. And you could, like I said, that could be a bear flag right there. And then a measured move would take you down to that target that we're talking about, which would be around the 0.5 of 618. And that would probably line up with that upward sloping trend line. We do have support underneath us. We're still creating higher highs and higher lows overall when you zoom out. The price action looks good. I don't really think there's too much to be worried about. I know we like to freak out every day because we're watching the day-to-day, but long term, I think we're okay. We also got resistance off of the 50 today, where we pushed up and we got rejection, and then we fell underneath the 20 here on the 4-hour as well. And when we just want to zoom out and get that better picture of what's going on, we can always revert back to global liquidity, and we see that this thing is still trending upward. Although we've deviated, I still don't think the correlation's completely done. Deviations happen all the time in every kind of correlation. Nothing is 100%. So I would imagine that it probably catches back up at some point, and we generally follow this. So if this continues up, I believe Bitcoin's going up, and if I believe Bitcoin's going up, then I think MSTR is going up. That's the whole reason I'm bullish on MSTR. I'm bullish on MSTR because I think Bitcoin has not finished its move yet. It's simple as that. Like, I think it's a leverage play on Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin's going up. So because I believe in Bitcoin, I'm believing in MSTR. That's it. And global liquidity is leading more than likely for Bitcoin. So I would imagine Bitcoin's going to continue up higher. The move could be getting pushed back little by little, but it's not the end of the world. On the weekly RSI, we're still creating higher highs and higher lows, still holding above our yellow moving average, so things are looking good. We still have a nice uptrend established. We'd love to see that. Nothing's broken yet, so I would imagine that this trend can continue, at least for the meantime. And we're still creating higher highs and higher lows, but it also is creating somewhat of a bear flag here on the daily RSI. If you were to take that, then your measured move. Of course, I don't think we're going all the way down there, but that would be the move. The idea is that it's a bearish setup, but short-term bullish. So let's see if we can break this local high here and have a clean move to the upside. On the weekly MACD, we're pinching closer. The blue and the orange are pinching together, but hopefully we can start to see the separation and see the blue start to ramp up, and we can get some increased volume to the upside. Today, volume was still low again. I think it was 8 or 9 million, which is still below the average volume, which is 12 million, and the average volume is still low compared to where we're normally at. That's why you can't really expect any large moves until volatility comes back for MSTR. And that's not going to come back until we have an aggressive move on Bitcoin. Hopefully we can get this green flip here on the MACD. The volume is dying down and it's kind of just trending sideways now. So let's see if we get the actual flip. And that flip would probably coincide with breaking out of this downward sloping trend line and pushing to higher targets. When we look at the larger time frame on Bitcoin, still the same idea. We had a large move up, so sideways action is expected. I mean, we ran up 50%, so we can't expect it to continue running forever. Sideways chop is expected after a large move like that. This is normal. Nothing to really complain about, nothing to worry about yet. I do think once we break 112 and eventually this upward sloping trend line, I think we can actually get a pretty sizable move. Doesn't have to play out, but I do think that is when we would have the opportunity to really have a drastic move. Right now, I think it's just going to be range bound until we break 112 and then the upward sloping trend line. So last time we spoke about, when we were in this zone, we were speaking about getting a clean move to the top of this range once we close above this zone right here. And we almost made it to the top of the range and we got rejected. So now let's see if this daily ends up, it already looks like it retested the zone. Let's see if we actually get a wick fill. Let's see if we fill this wick with a nice green candle, a solid candle all the way to the top. That would be perfect. That would be the bullish scenario. Bearish scenario would be pushing up, not breaking this wick, starting to wick, and then this turns into a red candle that closes at or below the body of this candle. So that's kind of where I can see things going. But overall, right now, it's just range bound here on the daily on Bitcoin. But we're waiting for this breakout here, retest, and then break these levels here. On the weekly EMA, the 8 EMA, you can see we got 2 bounces off of it, pushed up higher. And now let's see if we can continue moving up higher, or let's see if we actually end up pushing back to the EMA, retesting it again before we try making a next leg up. Here on the daily chart, we got a close and now a retest off the 20-day. So that's a very bullish sign right now after our bounce off the 50, which is super bullish as well. And on the 4-hour, we retested our 20 and now we closed underneath the 50. So we could be retesting to push back down. But ideally, in the next 3 hours, we want to close above 107K or higher so we can push above the 50 on the 4-hour SMA here on Bitcoin. Remember, these moves are never going to be easy. If it was easy, everybody would be, billionaires and multimillionaires. So you have to expect some kind of tough time to make money. Like, it's not going to be easy. That's why market psychology is such a big thing. That's why it's such a big deal. That's why you see different charts on market psychology, because this is what you go through. You go through the tough times, then you want to sell, and then it starts riding up, and then you want to buy back in at the top, and then you get crushed on the top when it drops, and so on. And it's a continuous cycle because it's market psychology. So if you can get your emotions in check, then you can make money. On MSTR divided by IBIT, you can see we pushed underneath our upward sloping trend line. And on the daily, we actually closed underneath our upward sloping trend line. And last time we did that, we ended up getting a nice little move to the upside. But on a short time frame here, from May 27th, we've been creating higher highs and higher lows. So let's see if we can continue the pattern and continuously push up and eventually break back above this upward sloping trend line. That's where we want to be. And I think if we can break this 6.47 level, we might be able to get a clean move up to about 6.96. And that would be pretty bullish for MSTR. Tether Dominance is still range bound while creating higher highs and higher lows. But let's see if we can start to get that move downward that we're waiting for, so Bitcoin can get a nice aggressive move to the upside. So you can see we're trending downward, but at the same time we're also trending upward here on the bottom part of this. Depending on how you draw it, you could exclude this and make it something tighter like that if you wanted to. So it all depends on how you want to draw it, but I'll just draw it like this for now. So hopefully we get a nice little drop here, and this is actually a bear flag. That would be perfect, because if we get a bear flag here and we measure that move out, it takes us to much lower levels, around 4.2, which would be very, very bullish for Bitcoin, and ideally bullish for MSTR if it's bullish for Bitcoin. Of course, as long as MSTR does its job, which goes back to the MSTR divided by IBIT. And today it didn't do that well, but at the end of the day, when you look on a large time frame, Bitcoin is just range bound, so we can't really expect too much from it right now. But here on the SMAs, on the Tether Dominance, we are holding above our 20 and 50. So we have a lot of support underneath price, which we don't want to see. We want to get a close below the 20 and 50, and then eventually underneath the 200. So ideally, we want to close at 4.67 or lower, so we can get that nice move to the downside, increasing the odds of a nice spike on Bitcoin and MSTR. That's pretty much all I have for you guys here on this video. Like and subscribe, share with a friend if you guys enjoy this content. I appreciate all the support, and I'll see you guys in the next one.